Hi there, this is Art and Such, and something different today. I'm going to show you how to make a three-dimensional Dreamcatcher, sort of like the one you see here. Now, for this pattern, you can incorporate feathers and beads if you want to. I haven't quite decided what I want to do for the middle of mine, but we'll get back to that later. You are going to need scissors, some leather and or suede glue. You can also work with tacky glue if it's okay with your fabric. You might have to try this out, just give it a practice run first, make sure that it's sticking. We are going to have 3 rings, all of the same size, and you can make this as big or as small as you want. I would recommend some twist ties to go around the joints. I'll talk about that in a minute. You also want some waxed thread, color of your choice, a sewing needle that is reasonably thin but has a large enough hole that your wax thread will go inside. We're going to finish off with a clear coat nail polish and your wrap. You can use wool, you can use different fabrics. I would recommend something in the way of leather or suede, and I'll talk about how to get these cut and prepared. Now, I believe the only other thing you're going to need here is just some newspapers or some old ads, something to keep your floor clean because the glue can get a little bit sticky. So first step then, you're going to take your 3 rings and fit them together one inside of the other. So this can be a little bit tricky. They sometimes like to pop out and pop around, but once you get it, you're usually good. And as I said, you can use twist ties to hold the joints together once it's there. So you're going to take your first 2 and slip one right over the other. So you would stand one up and then take your second one and slide it to the middle. Turn it over and slide your 3rd ring over those. So it goes on top. Like I said, it's a little tricky to get it in position, but once you do, you're good. And the way you can tell if it's even is if you line everything up, you should be able to make 4 squares or 4 sections that are the same regardless of how you turn it. So you can see I have nice even lines from any direction. So that is the first step. The second thing is to prepare our wrap, and I'll just make a quick note for you right now. I am going to be showing you the steps, but parts of this I'm going to do with you, and parts, just the longer parts, I'm going to say this is how you do it. Now I want you to go and try it for a bit. So with your strips, you want them to be as long as you can make them. And I like to do a little bit of a curve cut at the end, like so. Snip. And that way, when it comes around and lines up, we're going to have something sort of like this, and it closes off nicely. So I'll just show you sort of a practice one if we had a smaller piece here. I'm going to start on this side. What I like to do, like I said, is make a little notch so that it's going to come at an angle. Turn it this way so you can see it a bit better for now. And I'm going to cut up. Now, if you had a piece that's sort of short like the one you see here, this isn't quite the ideal because you don't really want to have curves in your wrap, but if you find that you have a piece of fabric you're working with and it's getting kind of short, what you can do is stop near the end, turn it around, and what we're going to do is cut around that curve, cut around that corner, and we're going to come back, continue cutting along the curve. And this can get you a longer piece, even though you might, as I say, end up with a couple of curves that you don't really want, but I understand if you have a smaller or shorter piece. And again, we want to just sort of snip at the end, so there's a bit of a diagonal there. And I'm going to go back, and I can see this is very curvy, so I'm going to straighten this out a little bit here, make it a little narrower at that point. And over here it's very curvy, so we're going to try to make that a little smoother too. Now ideally you'll have this just in a straight line and no curves, no problems, but it's okay if you have a little bit of unevenness. You can always overlap your pieces. Okay, let's clear up the space. Make sure you don't have any scraps on your work area because the glue will pick them up and it will stick to your pretty rings. I'll try to tilt the camera up for you a little bit. Now, unless your hoops have some kind of abnormality, you can really start anywhere you like. Pick any joint. And what I'm going to do, I just use an old cheap paintbrush. You can use, you can pour some out, use a toothpick, use the other end of a paintbrush. You can use a bamboo stick, anything you'd like to get a little bit of glue onto your stick and then onto your joint. So I'm going to find this one. Doesn't have twist ties on it. And I'm going to put it on. Just rub some onto the stick. And as I said again, I haven't done this yet, but you'll want to do a sort of a test go first. I'm going to find one of my biggest pieces here. Maybe trim that out just a little more. And I guess this is sort of to mention this after the fact, but you might be able to, you should be able to get some wrap that's already pre-cut if you're looking in a good place. So I'm just going to pinch this underneath. I'm going to wrap it around the joint, twist it over again, and we just want to hold this you know, like 20-30 seconds. We want to make sure that it's sticking, and when you're feeling comfortable with it, you can start to wrap it around. Okay, I think we're good. Let's press it in. Okay. Now another thing that you can do, if you are concerned about whether it's holding or you're getting impatient because we've got a lot to do here, one thing you can do is take one of your other twist ties and put it over the piece that you've just glued on. And this can hold it in place while you're wrapping. So you have two options with wrapping. You can bring your piece over the previous one. It can get kind of thick this way, but that's an option. Otherwise, you want to lay it down piece side by side, and you're just pushing it under, pulling it up. Try and get this better on camera here, and bring it through. So I hold it in place, grab it under, and pull it through. We're going to keep going. And I'm really nervous. I'm hoping the glue is going to hold here. You just keep moving. You want to keep moving your finger along so that you're always pinching down the piece that you just laid, and that way they're not going to slip about. You'll go until you reach the next joint, and if your pieces are a little smaller, then you want to glue it in place where it ends before the joint. Hopefully your piece is going to be long enough, and it needs to be, I guess, about 1/2 meter long each one to make it across hoops of this size. These are, I want to say, about a foot long, 12 inches long. So what I'm going to do here when I get to this joint, I'm going to take off my twist tie, which I don't really need here. These hoops are holding together nicely, but it's a good practice to get into. And we're going to sort of make a little X here, twist it around the next way, and you could decide if you want to go up from here, across, downwards. I'm just going to keep going across, and I'll show you what happens when we run out. You do want to make sure that you've covered that joint so that it's not super thick, because we might have to go around it again, but we do want to make sure the metal's not showing through so much. You can see this piece is a little thinner there, so I'm just going to sort of squish that tighter. And this isn't going to make it quite to the joint, but that's okay. We'll finish it where it finishes. So once it gets close, you can dip your glue back in. Gonna get a little more on here. And this will go straight onto the fabric. You can put it on the metal, but At this point I would say put it right on the fabric because you don't know quite where it's going to end, and press it down. And while I'm holding this here, I'm going to take off the other side and just make sure this is still holding okay. Okay. So from here, what you're going to do is let this dry, twist tie it in place if you need to, and when you're ready, get some glue and another piece, and you want to start it right where your last one finished and keep going around. So I'm going to finish this on my own, and I'll ask you to do the same with yours, and when you're ready, come back and I'll be at the next part and we'll continue from there. Okay, so my hoops are wrapped, and I have some extra on this one section here. You can see there's a piece sort of dangling. So if you have extra, that's awesome. This makes this a little bit easier. If you don't have an extra, like a little bit left over, you can take another strip. I'll show this to you both ways. Let me show you first if you have an extra piece and it's extra long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this into my top and the piece that's going to hang. And you don't have to have this piece, but it's nice because this is generally a hanging decoration. So what I'm going to do is just even this out just a little bit more here. I see a couple of scraggly pieces. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring it under. So we've wrapped it around the first joint. I'm going to bring it up and flip it over, decide how long I want it to be, and then I bring it under again, and I'm going to wrap it into a knot. So I'm going to bring it, just show you one more time, make sure you're still with me. So it's on the underside, I've wrapped it around the joint. I'm going to bring it up, I'm going to loop it over that same joint, keep everything nice and straight, figure out how long I want my hanging piece to be, and then I'm going to pull this back under through the same hole. I'm going to bring it up and over my looped piece. I'll pull that back a little bit so that I have kind of a loose section here, and I'm going to bring this piece through. Now you can add a little bit of glue here, you can pull it tight, you can do a double knot, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this excess back underneath. So let me just tilt this up for a minute. That's a nice length. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to keep it. Let's trim the bottom here. Put a little glue underneath. Just going to stick this right on the fabric, and I'll press that into place under the joint. So you can see I'm going to hold it there for a second until it dries, and then I'll show you if you want to, maybe you even just want to use a different color for your hanging piece, and you can do that as well. So you can glue this directly onto a joint. I wouldn't recommend that though, because your glue might slip. What I like to do is we fold it into a loop, we bring it around the joint. So trying to get it so you can see it here. Put this down a little bit for you. So one side will come around inside, and then we loop and pull it on the other side. You find where you want it, and then you're gonna bring your pieces back over. Okay, so this is what it looks like right now. You've gone from the inside through two sides of the same joint and pulled it out, and you're gonna separate these and bring them around your looped piece. And then you're going to tie them together in a knot on the other side. So let me move this out of the way for a minute. And you're going to cross them. You've got a little space here, and you're going to bring the side that's on top will be pushed around and under and through. You can make this as tight as you need. You can double knot it. You can glue the excess on again. And if this is the method you're using, you probably will want to do a double knot and knot it again at the back side. So I'll show you that as well, and then I'll take this off. So I'm bringing these around behind. I'll flip this up so you can see. We're going to cross them, bring one through the other, and of course you would want it to be a lot tighter than what you see here. So that's another way that you can add your hanging piece. And you can see I've got scraps sticking out. You can trim those or you can glue them under the joint again. Just gonna pull this out. And I'll show you once more what this looks like before we start on our next step. So this is your wrapped set of rings. You can see everything is still pretty even. Make sure we've covered everything. The insides of the joints are all clean. And we've got our hanging piece. And the next thing to do is to prepare our thread. Okay, before we go on, I just want to mention I did find a couple of beads. I haven't decided which of these I'm going to use, but they're both kind of orange cubes. Thought that might be interesting here. And I'm going to be using black wax thread. You can see it's in a kind of a saran to keep from drying out. If you do get wax thread, which you can acquire at a craft store or Aboriginal craft store, you will find it's a little bit tacky, a tiny bit sticky, but that will go away as you're working with it, and by the time you're done, it's not a problem, okay? I don't have an exact rule for measurement, but I usually estimate it at about 20 times the width here, 20 times the diameter. So in this case, I'm looking at 9 inches from one side of a circle of a ring to the other. So I'll be doing about 20 times that. And what that looks like in this case is sort of 2 wingspans, if you want to call it that. So from the tip of your finger, you're going to pull it loose and pull it across until you've stretched it all the way across your body to the other arm. I'm sorry, this is hard for me to show you on video, but this is the length for me from one fingertip to the other, and this is about 60 inches. And remember, this piece was 9 across, and then I'm going to pull it back the same distance. So it's going to be twice the span of the arm. You don't want to make it too much longer than this, because if you have excess thread, it can get tangly. It can also become really tedious. But if you have it like way too short, then you have to worry about running out of thread in the middle, and then you're going to have to add some on with knots, and that's just a mess you don't want. So I'll say it one more time. The length of my thread is about 20 times as long as the distance across one of the rings. Now what we're going to do in this pattern is we're going to be making 3 dream catchers. So one of them is going to go flat across the middle, and one will intersect. Oh, maybe we only need 2. We're just going to have 2 here, and maybe one the other direction. So make sure you've got a lot of thread. You're going to need a wide holed needle, and here we take one end, and you can grab a spot on the side, and we're just going to tie it around. Trying to make sure this is all on camera. Can't see anything, it's too bright. Just lean down. Okay, we're good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it behind, wrap it around, and we're going to make a knot. So we pull one side under the other, and you're going to bring it forward again and back through the hole. Trying to do this so you can see it well. Press it through, pull it tight, and repeat. So again, you'll bring your piece behind, pull it over and through the hole. And you can even do it a 3rd time if you want, so that it's extra secure. And pull. You want to bring this sort of inwards so that the knot's on the inside. To try this. I'm hoping this won't affect your light, but I want to make sure I can see what I'm doing here so that you've got a full view of everything. Oh, much better. All right. Now you're going to kind of move this back and pull your wax thread out until you find the other end. And that's going to go onto your needle. So I've got one here. You can see it has a large hole, and we can thread our wax thread through. I'm just going to pull it maybe about halfway down, because we're going to have lot of, you can already see there's a lot of thread here. And we want to pick the direction that we're going to go. So in this case, I'm turning this so that the hanging part is at the very top across from me. And what we want to do is take our needle and our thread, and this is going to be like with macrame. What it looks like is we go over, under, and up through. So I'll show you with the needle here. I'm going to take the end with the needle, bring it across. So it's going over the wrapped piece. And then I'm going to bring it under and back through. And I'll do this a little bit faster as we get going, but I just want to show you really slowly and clearly the first few times. Now we pull everything carefully through. Watch that nothing's hooked on. And as you're tightening it, you want to line it up. And I'm going to put about 2 inches in between mine. I think that's going to work, and if not, we can adjust as we go. And we're going to repeat this to the right. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball measurement here. I might move this first one over just a touch more. We're going to try to do 3 per side. So once again, I'm going to take my needle and bring it over, under, and through. So it comes on the inside from where you've brought it over. Pull all of this through. And pop it over loose until it's in place where we want it. Which is about 2/3 of the way through. And then the last time it's going to land right around the knot there. You just adjust my thread because the one piece is a little, like the other side's a little close, so I'm going to bring it closer to the end. And now I'm going to show you again with the thread. Put the thread over, and then we're going to come over and back through. Tell you one crazy thing about Dreamcatchers: if you have anything lying around, this will get caught on it. It's just like a fact of nature or something. Now we are going to go, because we wanted to fill this inner part. So I'm going to go, I want to end up on this side. On this side, and I don't want this to be across here. That's going to look messy. So I'm going to take my needle, poke it through next to right under where I put it in. And I'm going to bring it up and out on the other side. Okay, so we have the first 3, and I've brought it underneath this next piece, and it's coming out on the other side. And I'm going to turn this around so that we're on the next side, and we're going to bring it over and back through right next to that little bulge there for the corner. So over and back through. We've got this big hole here, this big space. We want to reach it in, pull it through, and make it nice and tight right against that little joint there. And then we're going to continue going all the way around. So now we want to get our next 1, 2, 3 pieces on the next part. So I've brought it over and back through that hole. I want to find about 1/3 of the way, pull it tight. Again, we go over. I'm going to show you with the black just for a second in case you can't see with the needle. So it goes over, under, and through. And you want that whole piece to come under. Adjust that to about 2/3 of the way. And we're gonna go around one more time and catch this just before the next joint. So I am gonna pick up the pace a little bit as we're continuing with the same thing. we're continuing to go across. So pull it underneath and up into the next section. So it's come underneath, do another knot that's going to sit right next to that joint again. And we're going to do our thirds for the next section. So knot it once for the first third. Again, bring it over, under, back through for the second section. I'm sorry to tell you guys, but this is still the easiest part we're doing here. Come around the next time right before the joint. Bring your needle under and into the next section. And then we're going to do another knot, another stitch here. Bring it up nice and tight and close around that joint. And this is our last, so you can kind of see here we're coming around. This is our last time across the ring, and then we're going to start connecting to the first section. And this one is a little too close, so I'm going to move it over, but like I said, I'm kind of eyeballing this. If you want to make any marks for yourself, that's fine if it's helping you. Okay, now I'm going to go underneath, but to the inside I'm going to pull this under and up. Here's where things get a little bit tricky. Okay, actually, yeah. Have to figure out how to show you this part. I'm going to stretch out my needle closer to the end of my thread so I have more room here. And now what we have is on the inside, we're back to where we started, and on the inside here, we have these threads from our first, let me pull that out of the way, these threads from our first run around. So what you want to do is take your needle, so this has come underneath and it's on the back, and you want to stick your needle through that first piece, bring it up, and it's going to come out on top of your black thread, like on top of the back end here. You want to come grab around and hold that piece, and now we're going to come from the inside, make sure that it's not hooked around anything. And you're going to do this again. I'm going to try to show you this a couple of times. So we're going for the next piece here, the next segment. You want to reach it on top, through, and when you bring it back up, make sure it goes over the last piece. And this is going to get a little bit easier for you to see as we get further away from the edge, because right now everything's kind of tight at the line on the side there. I'm going to hold this here, making sure my needle's on the inside, so there's kind of a direct line here. There's nothing else interfering. And we go under, up, and out. And I pulled that out the wrong way. And what you want to do when you're securing it, and you can always come back and adjust this here as you go, but you want to get it in the middle so that your piece is pulled up into a triangle. As I said, this will look a little clearer as we go. Doing my best here with the camera. So we're going to go under into the next piece. Here's the first third coming around here. So you've come under the next ring, and you put your hook in, or your needle in. It's going to go on top, up, and through. So you just want to watch that it doesn't go under the previous piece. Just bring it up close to where it was, and we're going to pull it up and grab it there. and up through the next one. You're going to see in just a minute, this is going to get a little easier for a while once we get away from the edge, but holding it's going to get a bit awkward. Through the next one, reach in with your needle on the upside, and when you bring it back up, bring it over the previous piece and lift that through. Adjust it to the middle, pull it nice and tight, and we're going to move to the next section. Under the first third, grab it, under the next third. Like I said, I'm going to go a little bit faster now. I'm hoping I cut enough thread. If not, I will either have to redo this, but I hope not, or else I'll be able to add it cleanly and make you an annotation. I think we should be okay though. Okay, so I'm making sure that it's going under the ring, and I'm holding on to the last piece. And we're going to go needle through and up and pull it back. I'm just going to pull it right back towards me here. Pull that tight. This is making my arm hurt. Okay, let's turn this again just to show you. You see it's coming out? There's our pattern is showing up here. Okay, let's get our needle. We're going to go through the next one from on top. Grab it through that hole that you've created, pull it tight and up. You do want to try to really keep this tight. I should mention, I can't remember if I did before, but if I haven't mentioned it, part of the purpose of the wrap, aside from making it look really neat, is to help get a sturdy place for your thread to go. Like it keeps it from sliding. Now we're going to go underneath. And now we're back to the beginning. So here what we're going to do is find the second closer inner row, and your hook goes into the space. And we're just going to repeat. So hook goes into that new space, and you're going to bring it up and through, but keep it on top of the thread that's coming from that other direction there. Show you this part slowly a couple of times, and then we're gonna start speeding things up. So it's going through. Try to do this so that nothing's blocking this, through the hole. And then we go up, and we want to make sure that it comes out the side closest to us, and we're not going behind the other piece, because then you're going to have to undo things a little bit. It's going to be a little messy. And we keep going around like so. I've got a sneaky suspicion I didn't cut enough wax thread, but like I said, if this is a problem, I can go back and fix it, and then we'll do this from the start. Okay, I'm getting the next piece underneath, and we turn it as we go, and we're just gonna keep coming around. And this is going to be the same thing right until we reach the middle. If you have any beads you want to add on, you can add them at any point here. Like I said, I'm just going to put one in the middle. I'm not going to get into that today, not with this particular Dreamcatcher. Okay, we keep going around. Keep it tight, keep it going to the middle, and you do want to, oops, you see this time I just went right underneath. I didn't put it back through the hole. So let's go under there and correct that. I'll tell you, this is this is one of the more awkward Dreamcatchers to make. It's usually you don't have all of these rings in your way. Can get a little bit awkward, but the effect is really, really cool in the end. We're almost around to the next set here, the next rotation.
Keep it going around. And what I'm going to do now is get you to pause and continue until you are near the middle. And when you're ready, come back. Now I'm going to have to start this again with the longer piece of wax thread, and I'll be sure to throw that on the annotations. Rule of thumb didn't work this time, but we'll get it sorted. Okay, be right back. All right, so when you're ready, when you're here and we are close to the middle, I've just left a little gap here, and I'm going to close it in a little more until I'm ready to add my bead. And if you don't want a bead, that's fine. You can knot it in without one. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep pulling it tight, and we're going to continue to go around just a couple more times here. You can see as you're getting closer inwards, your spaces get a lot smaller, and you will have to turn your hoops around more frequently. And what you want to do is, when you're coming in really close to the center, instead of just holding the piece in place, you want to kind of pull it tight as well as you go. And that way everything's going to be nice and taut, and it's also going to bring you closer to the center. You want to be consistent as you go around and try and keep a similar tension all the way through. Just going to go around a couple more times here. Make sure you're getting into every hole, even though they're getting really small, some of them. And if you choose to, you can leave a gap like this open as well, and I'll show you very soon how to finish this off, like the section as you get through it. You want to do this until you're able to pull it tight enough that the pieces come together. So we'll keep going around. You can see it's starting to bunch up towards the center. Doing this again. Now the next part that we're going to be doing after this is an intersecting wall. So we're going to be doing another Dreamcatcher shortly that's going to come through from a different direction and cross through the web that we've made. So it's going to be a little bit crazy. I'll still do my best to keep things on camera and make everything clear for you. So all the way through, right to the middle here, you're still doing that same kind of knot. So it goes through the hole, back up, and it comes up above the thread where it was put in. I'm seeing I'm almost where I want it to be, but I do want to make sure this is nice and even and that we're not leaning our circle more to one side than the other. So we're just going to continue until the tension is the same all around. We're almost there. And then I think we'll probably be ready to add that bead in. Okay, let's have a look. And I like to just fit it in with my fingers before I put it into place. I think that's pretty good. So I'm going to put my needle through and thread that on. Then we're going to reach directly across, come back through. And I'm actually going to stretch this a little bit so that it fits right inside. And it looks like this is a little closer than we want it, but let's try to press that right through so that it's kind of sitting in the middle. And I might go through this one more time. Positioning the bead is probably one of the hardest parts of this. So you want it to sit nice and central, but to be really secure there. So whether you've put in a bead or not, what you're going to do to tie off that thread is find a nearby hole, go through it with your needle, and come back. Here, I'm going to do this slowly. Go through, come back under it, like under the next, into the next section. And you see there's a hole here and you're like a loop that you've created. You want to go up through that loop, pull it tight into the side, and then we're going to do that again. So it goes down, I'll show you this the slow way or the long way again, goes down through a hole, and you're going to come up through the next hole over, and when you're coming up, you're going through this loop that you've created. You can do it a third time if you want to, and whether you have a bead in the middle or not, that's how you're going to secure it. We want to trim this sort of close, but leave just a tiny bit, because before we take this off, or before we go to the next part, you want to take clear nail polish, or possibly a clear glue, put it over those last knots. If you have anything else that needs extra securing here, we're going to do that. And we're going to put it around the very first knot that we tied when we started making this section. And this should dry relatively quickly. It won't be in your way, and we can trim the threads the rest of the way after. I just like to do this because I think it sort of stiffens up the piece, makes the thread hold better. So there, our first layer is done. And now we're going to cut some more thread. So our correct measurement now is about 3.5 wingspans, or I guess that's about 35 times your diameter. And I'm thinking the reason I was confused here is just that as you get to larger and larger hoops, the thread disappears faster because you're working wider, and I didn't account for the rate of those extra few rows in the middle. That has an effect here. So I'm doing 3 times the length of my arm and then another half time. Measure it once and fold it back to get the next 2. And then we're going to go about to the halfway point, maybe a little extra there, just in case, and cut. Alright, we've got a big piece to work with here. Now let's go through from, you can kind of pick, but I think you'll have to start at the top either way, or maybe, I think I'm going to start at the bottom, and that way we can hang out down some feathers if we want to cover it later. So I'm going to go to the very bottom, and I'm going to tie this around the same way that I tied it for the side. So we're going to cross one piece under the other, bring it up and through that loop. If you have another knotting method you like, you can certainly do that. This does work just fine, but I'll leave that part up to you. As long as you have it secure on here, I'm doing 3 knots. Nice and tight, and then you can pull it kind of inwards. And we will want to find the other end. Put that on the needle and thread it through part way. Now I did say halfway the first time. You might not want to put it quite that far, but you do want to make sure that it's securely on and you've got some of the thread through it. Okay. So you can see there's lots and lots of thread here. We have to watch this doesn't get too tangly, but we'll do our best. Now, excuse me, the first part that we're going to do is going to be just the same as the part we did for the center. So we're going to come across here, knotting it into thirds. So our needle will go over, under, and back through on the inside of the space that we've created. So let's see, you catch everything with this. I got the camera that time. So we're just going to pull everything through. Try not to get any knots as you go. Just at the moment we've got a lot of thread to work with, but it'll get shorter as we go. Position it about 1/3 of the way across your circle. and we're going to place it again another third of the way across. Same kind of stitch here. Like it's the same knot. So second one in place, and we're going to finish it again right before the joint. So knot it over, and we're going to stop it there. And just like before, we go through, but when we go through this time, you want to put it into like through this space, through the knotted section. I think I'm just going to have to pull it through, and then you'll see where it ends up here. And then you won't have the thread in the blocking your view. Okay, so it's just come around and through. And we continue all the way around just like we did before. So you might be starting to figure out here, the hard part is going to be when we start intersecting with the more centrally woven pieces. Okay, let's continue going around. So we do the next segment of thirds. Very same knot. And I'll just show you, if you ever find this happening, if you ever see this, that means you forgot to bring it back through. So what you do is you pull it back down, back over, and you grab your thread through. And I see a knot in mine, so I better pull that out in a second. Where did it go? There we are. Wax thread isn't too bad for knots. You might find you have to use your needle to pull it out, and it can fray the thread a little bit, but it's generally pretty sturdy stuff. If you are using other kinds of wool or embroidery thread or leather, anything else like that, you might be in for some nastier tangles, but hopefully getting through this okay. We're at the top here. We've come around to that hooped part, and we're going to just pretend that's not there. Come underneath. And loop it around again on top and back through to the joint. So this is just what we did before. We're looping it so that it's coming across on either side. Make sure that's tight, and come around again. I'm just looking forward to when this thread gets a bit shorter so we don't have to pull all of that through each time. That's really what takes the longest, isn't it? I'm just getting the thread to catch up. Okay, so we're on the side of the joint. And you're probably figuring out by now how this is going to look, like how this is going to work. We are going to keep going across, but when you're looping through and we get to the intersecting crossed woven pieces here, you're going to have to strategically pull the thread through. So let's finish up this row here, and then we're going to start moving inwards. And another one 2/3 of the way on this piece. Almost back to the beginning. We go underneath. I'm really excited. I've been wanting to get this video done for a while, but I've been waiting for a time when I had some spare time and some proper light. Now I'm going to go under so that it's going to come to the other side here. Pull this tight. I'm going to bring it up and through. And now we're going to start on that next section. So we go through the first piece from that first round, poke it through, and it's going to come up and back so that it's staying inside of the loop that we made. And once more, I'll tell you this is going to get clearer as you go. So into the next space, poke it through, bring it up and back through the hole that you've created. And I'm going to try to quickly go around this for you. So let's do the next one. We want to keep holding these tight as we go. You see here, we have to go through, oh, we can still go through that first, I'm trying to get you a good camera angle here, through that first piece, like that first hole that you see. I can't point and lift this. Ah, this is so frustrating. Right in here. Okay, that first space. You can go right through there again, and then you're going to come out and we're going to do the next. So just put it through that first kind of box that you've got again. And we're going to come back around. So weave through the first piece of the next section, and we'll continue this way all the way back to the beginning. Now you can see here, this is where it gets really tight, like really tight and hard to find a place to hold it. And the last time around, like our last intersecting side, is going to be the hardest. So you can see right now I'm grabbing it from underneath instead of from on top. But whatever you need to do to keep it tight and secure is fine. And there's nothing here, so you can just bring it over. We're back where the hanging part is, so just pull it behind. This is like we did on the first one, and loop it through your next piece. And keep going. We'll be crossing through at the same point on the second time around because this is symmetrical, and this is just doing what we did on the opposite side first. So cross through that bottom space. There's a little hole here. It's from the first one or two circuits of the first loop. And we're coming around again. We're gonna find our first line here, go under, through, back up. And this is what we're gonna continue to do until we come back around to the woven piece again, like until the first circle. I'm going to bring this through again, make sure we're following the same ring across. Still pinching it tight from the bottom. And we're going to go through the next hoop, and we just keep following that. But I'll do some more with you here on this layer, I guess you could sort of call it. And you can see the grip does get a little bit awkward because now we have the rings, the hoops in our way, and we also have the previously knotted thread in our way, like the Dreamcatcher up to this point. So this is a hard pattern, but trust me, it's worth it. It does look really awesome in the end. And we're getting there. We're getting close to the two-thirds of the way through, and we have all of our wrapping and our hanging piece on. We might also do some feathers after. So now you can see there's that right in the bottom here, there's this piece, and right above it there's another one. And you might be able to fit through that bottom piece one more time, or you can go through the next one. That's kind of up to you. I think I'm going to go through that next one up. We just poke the needle through and pull the thread right through there. You're gonna see pretty soon what's gonna happen is kind of cool. Actually, I can get in one more knot here. I might do one knot on either side. You have to do a little bit of figuring as you go, just like here, this one I'm kind of thinking the middle is right by the middle, so yeah, I'm gonna keep that in that bottom space. But you want to try to sort of line up the spaces as you go. Okay, and there we are. And next one, I'll keep going around. I want to hold this one really tight because I want it to stay just where it is. So here I'm grabbing it from the opposite side of the ring. And we're going to go through and knot it again. Now this has to go through. So I'm bringing this behind the ring, and that way we don't have, you know, black lines showing up on top and out of place. We want to really keep in the center section. I see another knot here. Let's fix that fast. I don't want it to get tighter than it is. Now, if you're finding it hard to watch while you work, or if this is going too slowly, you can always jump ahead and meet me back closer to the center if you've got a hang of this already. It's all good. And if you feel you need to go back at any point to double check anything, go for it. And as with any project, this kind of thing, I mean, it's not the ideal, but if things aren't working the way you want, it's okay to go back and start it again, or undo some pieces, or readjust the tension from further back. I'm still going through the first space here. I decided to keep it on the bottom level this first time, just looking at where everything lines up. Okay, make that nice and tight. Hold that there, and we're going to go around or through to the next side. I'm going to try tilting this way a little bit. Hopefully that's better for you. Pinch it from the bottom. Next piece. Grab it, pull it up tight, pinch it from the bottom. Gonna go under the next one and back up and through. And I'm actually gonna pull this right to the other side now because I know that's where it's gonna need to go after anyway. Sometimes you can kind of combine a couple of motions at once, and that makes it a little bit faster. You can see the spaces are already starting to get just a little bit smaller. I should make a little verbal note for you here. You don't really have to do the third layer. It gives you a sense of completion and I think a little pride. But you could do this just with the 2 layers, and then a few like the across and then down. And that way, if you wanted to, you could have things hanging from the center here. You could have things hanging down or whatever you'd like. So this time around then, I'm gonna move this closer, and you can see you have this first bottom level layer, and then this, I'll move this out of the way too. You've got this bottom one, and then you've got the next one up. I'm gonna go through this next one, but from the opposite direction, because that's the way I'm going. And I'm gonna collect my thread on the other side. So let's take the needle. I'm still holding this tight, and I'm gonna poke it through and grab it through. And that's what we're gonna do when we reach the cross piece on the other side. And now I'm gonna collect it on the side on the right here and bring it through the next hole and bring it up and back. and we'll continue weaving it around. So you're probably starting to get the feeling. Like I said, you can always put the video down and try some of this on your own and then come back and jump ahead a little bit. I'm gonna do this the long way for you. And I've got 5 more minutes on my battery life here, so let's see how far we can go, and I might have to pause for a second and come back after. It's shaping out to be a long video. But this is kind of a big project, and we haven't even done anything with feathers or whatnot yet. Although that part, it doesn't take too long. Not so bad to do. I'll tell you, once you get through the weaving, everything else is going to be cake. And if you're this far already, then you're doing great, and you can totally handle this. Now I'm back at the opposite side of our weaving, so I'm going to go through that second hole again. I'm holding it here. I'm putting my needle carefully through, and you can even pinch it on the one side and then grab it through from the other if you're worried about it falling into the wrong place. Pull it tight, next side, and through. And we're going to be doing this right to the middle, but I'm going to stay with you for this part anyway. Now, one thing about Dreamcatchers and weaving, I should have mentioned this before, is that you really want to set a time when you can do this all at once, like do a segment at once, because once you put this baby down and you leave it, you're going to lose some of your tension, and you're going to have to do a really good and careful job picking it up to readjust and just retighten and reorient yourself to where you were. I'm still grabbing these from the bottom, so you better hope you got a good grip. You can grab it from on top now as well. Just make sure you're sort of stabilizing your arm, that it's not just dropping down. Straighten out my threads here a little bit. And they really will try and get a little tangled on you. So just keep an eye. If you see knots forming, try and keep on top of that. Okay, make that tight again. And I'm going to go through the same hole that I went through last time. So what I'll do is I'll knot it on this side. And then I'm going to collect the needle on the other side. And then I'm going to pull this kind of tight so that it's in place. Right there. Hold it. And we'll keep going around. So this time I'm going to grip it. I'm going to reach through another piece to grip that there, because it's too far for me to reach from the bottom. It's too awkward to get on top. And yes, this is awkward also, but we'll do what we can. Bring it under and through, and knot the next one. Going. We're back to the other side. I'm gonna knot it through a little loose and then press it through. We're still on that second sort of diamond from the bottom on the intersecting piece, and tighten it where it meets. And keep going around. And I'm just gonna give my battery a really fast charge in a second here, and then we'll continue. Okay, let's continue. Just gonna keep her weaving here. you can see, as with the first I don't really know what to call this, but our first time across, you can see the thread, the holes here, the spaces we're making, they get a little bit tighter each time. It makes it smaller. It also makes the more inward rotations or circuits go a little bit slower. And this is where you lose a lot of, like, where a lot of your thread length gets shortened. This next one, I'm going to reach through the little space above the next little space. So we'll pinch that and pull it through. And you might find that the spacing is just a little bit different on yours. So if you need to put it through a little bit higher or a little bit lower, that's totally fine. Just the thing you want to watch is that you're keeping your pieces balanced. You're securing the pieces right in the middle of the loops here. So let me bring this through here. It's out of the way. So you can see every single time I do this, I make sure that my piece is pretty close to the middle there. So you have half going up and half going down. I'm getting nervous for the last cut through here. I haven't done one of these in quite a while. I do recall that the last part's a bit of a challenge. Mostly in terms of fingering, and just so you got to keep track of where your pieces are going. But so far so good. This is looking pretty cool already, I think. Okay, we're past the halfway point. I'm sort of pinching right through that crossover piece there, because that's where I can get a well-positioned grip. And just anywhere you can reach it so that it's going to stay firm is all right. Let me just keep going under, and when you come back up, you bring it under the piece that you started with here. And this, incidentally, is the same knot that you use when you're doing macrame for friendship bracelets or for larger scale macrame projects. I have a couple of tutorials up about macrame. I'll try to remember to put links in the description or one of those little cards that'll direct you with the link. I think this time around this can still fit through. Can still fit through that same space in the crossover section. Make sure that's kind of tight, and then I'm going to press it through and grab it on the other side. And hopefully by now you're getting a good feel for this and finding out what positioning works for you. Where am I going to get the reach here? This is where it gets tricky. But we're getting close on this part, and then there will be one more section to go. I kind of like this in a mathematical, geometrical kind of sense as well. So it's not just a straight weave. We have a lot of interlocking pieces. We've got the chain or the linked hoops happening. Makes it almost a planetary kind of thing. At the same time, you're working on dexterity. You're playing with colors and combinations and artistry. There's just a lot of really cool stuff, not to mention religious, spiritual, cultural things that you might be learning or gleaning as you're making this, or as you're researching about dream catchers and learning more about them. And when I teach this to a group, I usually talk a little bit about how dream catchers are believed to catch bad dreams. You use circles to represent the cyclical nature of nature, and they are often, although not in this case, but usually traditionally they're made with natural materials found in nature, like soaked and then bent sticks that are formed into circles. You see the feathers from the eagles. There's a lot of symbolism in these. I think this next time that I go through, I'm going to probably put it through the next loop up in our row of crossing over ones. This is looking so cool. Like I said, I haven't done one in a while, so I'm very happy with the effect this is having with the black here. I was torn between doing black thread and the tan thread, and this just looks really cool. Okay, here we go. We're getting to the really tight, nitty-gritty part of this. And you want to start trying to pull the pieces up towards the middle as you tighten them, and try and draw it inwards a little bit more here. You'll probably see what I mean as you get close to the center again. That you're just pulling up, and you can see it starts stretching things more inwards. And this one is going to have to go through the next little hole, and now it's getting to be really, really small. And the spaces in between. But at this point you want to kind of start pulling them up to the hole above as you come around, because that's going to help you as the pieces stretch inwards towards the center. And we still want to keep this even into the middle of each hole that we're going through. Whatever grip helps, whatever works here. I'm pulling it underneath into the side as I'm coming up. Sometimes, like I said, it just kind of saves us an extra step after. So I'm going to pull it through, and then I'm going to pull it over to the right, and that way it's going to stay on this side. It's not a requirement, but like I said, it makes it just a little bit smoother going. That's getting close. Can almost reach it now. Almost at the bead. This is another thing I like about putting a bead in the middle, is that you don't have to go quite as far with your thread, and it also looks a lot neater. You aren't going to have just a ton of thread knotted up in the middle. This gives it a, I don't know what to call it. I want to say like a context or a meeting point or something here. These are starting to slip where I don't want them to. Let me pull it through to the other side, and then I'll try to adjust it after. So I'm going through the space close to there, and then I'm going to try and tug it to the side a little more. That's kind of better. And we're just going to keep going. Keep it really, really tight. You can see it's getting crazy hard to get a good finger hold at this point, but we keep doing our best. Have to bring this one under the orange hoop again. Keep it going. And just as with the first piece, I said you could leave a space in the middle. If you wanted to leave a space over here on either side, you could do that. I am going to come right up to the bead though. bring it through our crossover piece here. Okay, so it's just going right through. I hope you can see it from that angle. Oh. Okay, onto that one underneath. Now if you see, and this is again something we could have talked about earlier, but that's okay. If you see that, like, the piece just below, like, let's say that you see this piece and this piece suddenly appear really tight together, that might mean that you've looped your thread around both of them. And in that case, you'll want to backtrack and redo that section. I'm not saying like right now you're going to see it there and go back and do it, but if you saw that with two of the sets that you've just done, then that would indicate that you've gone over two instead of over one and through that hole. Just a kind of belated pointer there. I want to get this in just as tight as we possibly can. And the tighter it gets, the more precision you work into this, the better it's going to look. But it really does get harder as you get close. You can see that really clearly. You're experiencing it for yourself. I'm thinking probably 2 more times around ought to do it. But we'll have to play this by ear. Okay, through and back up in front. So let's go around 2 more times. I can see this one can reach the bead. I'm going to bring this over to the right side so that it comes out underneath the orange. And this one reaches the bead just about. Let's go through again. And we're just going to bring this as close to the bead as we can all the way around. And then we'll secure it once it's nice and tight. So, like I said, I'm probably going to try and do this one more time, and then we'll finish off this part the way we did the first section. This goes through. Pinch that on the next side and turn this around. Keep everything really nice and tight and go around again. And thanks for your patience, guys. I know this is, like I said, this is a really lengthy project, and there isn't so much of a shortcut without me, like, not doing it with you. And I know I left, or there was that part that I said go on your own, but this one is a little more detail to it. So that's why I've kept you here on camera with me, or watching me on camera. Yeah, I'm thinking one more time around probably ought to do it. I just want to get this in nice and close. And depending on the kind of bead you have, you might be able to and might be inclined to run your wax thread through the bead again as you come close, and that will secure the line more tightly. But that really will depend on the bead. If you've got a bead, that is. Okay, we're almost there on this layer, and then we've got, or this, I don't know, this ring, this hoop. Then we've got one more hoop to weave around. So basically this next time that we're going to be doing this, it's kind of the same as what we just did, but instead of crossing through intersecting cut pieces every other time, you're going to be doing it every time, because now you've got at all four sections there are pieces to intersect or to cut through. So I'm going to do this just a touch more here. What I'm going to do is hold this tight all the way through to the top. As I pull this through, I'm sorry this part is going to be a little hard for you to see on the camera, I'm afraid, but there isn't too much for it. I'm going to cut through the next little hole, which is right alongside my bead. Let's tighten everything up. We're going to loop on the opposite side. The holes are getting really small here, but that's okay. That's actually what we want to have happen. I'm going to go to the end of this row, and then we're going to secure this. And again, like I said, if you want to wrap your thread around the bead or through the bead one more time, you can always do that. It will help to secure it better. It might look cool, but it might not be necessary in this case, just because of the way the hole runs through my bead. It's a diagonal cut. I'm not gonna do that here. So you want to find a space where your knot won't be too showy. I'm going to go through to the other side here. Turn this around again. And this is going to be hard to show, so I'm going to show you what it would look like on the edge here. So here's my old thread. So what you're going to do is you're going to go over you're going to go right in the center where your thread is, and you're going to go around that piece under. Okay, so if you're coming from here and back up through the new hole. So move my hand around, we go over, under, and back through, and pull it up and to the side, and then do it again. Like I said, this is a little too hard to get a closer look, but it's sort of like you're just going to do an extra weaving stitch. Just want to pull that in nice and tight 1 or 2 times. Make sure things aren't too wobbly, nothing to adjust here. This is really hard to see. I'm kind of just trying to feel my way through it. And then we give this a little trim, sort of close to the thing. We're going to put our nail polish on. I'll hold this up for you to see, and then we'll take a minute and start on the last component. It's our nail polish. And this started, let's see, this one started, I can't even tell anymore. Have to find the other end so we can put on, it was on the bottom, wasn't it? Yeah. That's right, we started it opposite the hanging piece. Now at this point, the polish from your first run around should be all dry. You can find that edge, and if it needs a little trimming, now's a good time to do that before there's anything in the way there. Just leave a tiny, like a millimeter or 2 there, because you don't want it to come undone all the same, so just in case. Anything else sticking out, you can give it a little trim. And I'll hold this up for you, so you can leave it this way, or you can stick with me and we're going to fill in this last piece. And then we can add some feathers if we want. Alright, we're at our last step before we add any feathers and beads to dangle down. So we're going to get prepared to do one more ring here. It's this one where you see the holes coming through. And we'll need again about 3.5 times the length of your arm in thread. So I'm just going to measure this out here. And I know you all have different lengths of arms, so I'll just reiterate it's about 35 times the distance across one of your rings. You might be using different sizes of rings as well, so this should translate a little better that way. If you have smaller rings, you might need just a little bit less, and if you've got bigger ones, a little bit more. But we kind of talked about that already a little bit. So there we go with our whopping big piece. I'm going to put my wax back in it around and put that to the side. And let's find one end. This is going to be tied. I'm going to tie this around the bottom again. So opposite from the top piece, and just trying to decide. You can bring it across for symmetry, or you can pull it over the same direction that your first piece went. I think I'm going to do mine in the opposite direction from the knot for the last section. So get inside there, reach it around, knot it on 3 times. Get a sneeze, just excuse me. Oh. Cold I've been getting over just won't quite go away. Let's do one more here. And it's alright if you wanted to leave more of a tail here. This is just the way that I did this. Now you want to turn it so that you're kind of facing the empty space. And I'm going to find the other end and put it through the needle. And the weaving is going to be just like it was in the last 2 times around, like the last 2 circles here. The difference is that we're going to be intersecting at each of the points with the crossed over sections. So I'm going to limit our movement a little bit. We're going to start by let's move this kind of on the inside, so I'm going to bring this behind a little bit through, and this is going to be my first knot, so I've got it over, and I'm going to put my needle under and back up through that hole. Okay, back up through there from behind. And we'll pull it tight at the point that's about 1/3 of the way across that hoop. And get it nice and steady. There we go. And I just want to turn my knotted piece in a little bit so that it's facing a little closer to where we are. Let's go for the next one. So bring it across, under, up, and through. And one more time, right after this. Gotta watch, I've got knots forming here. Always gotta watch it when your thread is really long. It likes to get wrapped around itself. We'll knot it again just by the joint here, so over, under, and through. I feel like these aren't quite even. I'm gonna loosen it up a little bit and push this piece back. Alright, and let's go under again. Yeah, let's go under. So this time, let me find somewhere you can see it. You can see right at the joint, there's that big kind of diamond shape. We're going to reach right through there. Pull it out onto the other side. I think that's what we wanted. I actually think I'm going to go under the one just below that. It's a closer fit. There, that's nice. Pull that tight. And we're going to do our next set, and we're going to repeat this all the way around. So we go over, under, up, and through. And if this is confusing you because it looks like I'm coming from a different direction and you've already got a method that works for you, just stick with what's getting you the right stitches here. Let's bring this close up to the joint. And then we can find the next third. I was waiting for it to catch on something. Thanks. My camera's got all these floppy pieces on it on the stand, so fortunately my thread is getting a little too close. I might have to push this back a bit from the camera, but we'll see. Okay, and the second third for this next quarter here. Pull it tight, and you always want to be pulling it tight wherever you're knotting it. Going to come around under the joint by the top piece. And then we're going to wrap it underneath and through the first really big gap there. So what you're probably figuring out is that the closer you are to the outside, the easier this is, and as you get further inwards, the further you have to reach your hand to hold it, and the smaller the space is, and the closer together they are, and the more you have to do. So right now we're still in the easy part. I'll keep going, and we're just going to work our way towards the center again. So I'll do a couple more rotations with you, and then I might have you pause to get closer to the end before meeting me back here. But I will show you some of the next places to intersect. Nice and tight. And we're going through that big space again. Should be the same on all of them all the way around, really, if all of your knotting has been lined up evenly. Another one close tight to the joint. What I kind of love about these is because they're because they're spherical, they have a nice easy way of rolling with you and turning for you as you go. So you just have to give it a little bit of light pressure, and of course there you are in the next section. It just pivots for you very easily. When you're working on a flat Dreamcatcher, you have to actively spin it, and I mean that's fine, it's not too hard to do, but this is nice. It's just like rolls where you want it. We're back to the beginning here. And we're going to go through that first space again. So look for the shape that lines up. Pull it through. And you want to go inside the first one. Needle through. Pull it up and bring it back inside of the space you've created. And this should be looking familiar. This is what we did for both of the other sides. The only difference, like I said, is that this time we just have to cross through our already woven pieces as we come to them. So I'll go around one more time, maybe two, and then I'll let you do some of this on your own. Cross through, find the next big space, or this is still in the first one actually, first big space of the interlacy woven part, and come out on the other side. You're still holding this and you're knotting the next section. And just to show you, you can see this on yours already, but if you're looking up, you can See, there's sort of a straight line from the bottom, space, 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 space. And they do get smaller and smaller, but if you go like in a straight line, those are the ones that you're going through each time around. And sometimes you'll go through the same one once, as you've already seen, and like if you don't need to be reaching it from higher, you just want to keep this all in an even row, so it's coming around the same distance from the edge every time you go through. So this can still, I know this can still fit in the first section, because if I pull it over the second one, it's going to be way higher than it was. I want it to just continue straight all the way along. Through the next one on the next side we're going. Now you can also see, and I didn't mention this before, but you can see what I like to do with this and with macrame is once I've got my needle through, I just let go of it and I pull all the way, and then I grab it and give it an extra tug at the top. And this is, like I said, something you do a lot in macrame as well. It just makes it's a lot easier and a lot sturdier than extending and tightening your whole arm to get that snug little fit at the bottom. If you pull it close to here, you get it nice and tight and you don't have to do a long reach. Coming through that big bottom piece again in the intersecting section, and I'll get you started on the next row, and then we'll kind of break here and come back together when we're all close to the middle. So I think you know what you're doing by now. Do you know what would be cool? What I should do is get a brightly colored beading or sewing needle, or maybe even just paint it, and that way I'd have no trouble. Like I could just grab for it, it would be right where I wanted it to be, and I wouldn't have to hunt for it at all. Okay, so here we are on the next one. I'm still going through the bottom space on this first time around, turning it to the next quarter. Keep centering it on your triangles. And I'm still reaching from the bottom to grasp it, but these are getting higher up, so we might have to reposition our hands soon. So now I'm going to grab it from on top. That one's actually a little bit higher. I'm going to take my needle and go through the next part. And, this is going to go, needle's going to go through that same hole. So I'm still using that first hole. It's a big space. We can get a lot of, go through it a number of times, and I'm going to tighten up my knot right where it lines up with that other piece. And we'll keep going. And I hope by now you kind of got the idea. I'm going to let you try some of this on your own, and when you are getting close to the middle, you're ready to do the last couple of rounds and tie it up, come back and check this out, and we'll finish this off together. Now we've got it going pretty close to the center here. Got a little space. I'm going to fill that up with you, and then we'll finish it off. So you can see my reach is getting kind of awkward in this part, but we're just going to hold on to this wherever we can find a space. And this is the point where you really want to start pulling it kind of upwards. Go through the next one. I saved the best for you. And I'm going to bring this through the hole while I'm at it. So as soon as I can find the hole, let's turn my angle here so I can see it from the other side. So from here, we're bringing it really nice and close, pulling it upwards as we go. I'm going to put my thumb through a nearby hole and then grab it up from the back side there. Pull that up nice and tight. And I'm still just weaving it through and around. This is just what we've been doing all the way up to this point. It's just really tight up here is all. Oh, we're getting close. Grab that from on top. Go for the next one. Okay, this is totally like the very worst part of this. But we've almost got it, just a few more. You might also be finding at this point it gets a little bit harder to tell your threads apart and to see where you're going, but that's why you want to keep keep a different color in your background so you've got some contrast, which is why I'm using the whiteboard here, and you want to keep turning this. You also want to make sure you have good lighting for this. Now if you're using a lighter color of thread, it might be, I'm not sure, it's a while since I've done this, but you might find that it is easier then to tell it apart. Or you might find it just as meddling. I'm not sure if that's a word, but I like the sound of it, meddling. Okay, let's keep closing this in here. Make sure we get into every single hole. Now, if you're feeling ambitious or crazy and you don't feel like this is enough when it's done, you do have the option of making Dreamcatchers cross the your quadrants here, or your your upper four and your bottom four. You can always do another net to cover, but that will just make everything look really, really busy and maybe too crazy. So I wouldn't do that if I were you, but you can. You might like the way it looks. You can always do something like I've done ones that look like bird cages where I've just done the outsides and haven't done any weaving on the inner sections. I think we're close. This one is just about touching the bead. So we need to bring it around again. Make sure it's tight, nice and tight all the way around. So you'll see a lot of what I'm doing here is I'm kind of grabbing through from one side to the other. Because sometimes that's the only way you're going to get a grip. When it's in the middle, like in here, it's a little more challenging. But then you can reach it from behind and kind of grab it on the back side. It's not as good for keeping the tension, but we're doing what we can. Bring this through here. We're right up close. And I still see a little bit of a gap, so we're going to go in a little bit tighter here. Thinking one more time around. Okay, almost there. And whenever you're ready, if you do find you're close enough already, you can start securing it in the way we did the last two. I'm going to go just a little bit further. Pop that all the way through and all the way back. Back through. And the last time around, we're not going to get any tighter than this. So what I'm doing here, and you might find helpful, is to go all the way down and then all the way back up. And that gives you some more room to move your needle around. So all the way through the hole, straight down, and then bring it back up through the new loop you've created. Bring it through across here. Down all the way, up all the way, just because there isn't room to bring it back from a side angle. And I think we're finally right where we want it to be. Oh, one more space here, I see. So we'll just finish this little quadrant here. Good. Now find a nearby piece, push it through, and you're going to bring it back, and we're just going to do the same kind of knot we've been doing, but we'll do it a couple of times in a row in the same place. So I'm going to bring it up and back through and pull it tight. And again, try and get that same space, bring it through, pull it back, pull it tight. And then we're done. Then we'll be done all of our weaving parts. Last time, just make this extra secure. Back through that same spot a third time. And I'm just going to press it in with my fingernail. Now let's leave the tail end of this for the moment. We'll put on some clear nail polish where we started this piece and where we finished it. So that knot in the center we just did. Nice big blob of polish, cover that up. And let's trace this back to the bottom, and we're going to cover up the knot where that started. You can trim any loose ends, and then I'm going to show you how you can add feathers and beads to hang down. So you can see I've got my newspapers ads laid out again. We're going to be doing a bit of gluing and some cutting. Now I have gone ahead and done the first 3 sides for the feather attachments, and I'm going to show you how to do it for one side so that you'll know to do for all of them. Now for this part you can use beads, and I've got 3 pony beads here, so 2 blacks and an orange. You can use 1 larger bead, or you can use feathers. Now the feathers and the beads work nicely together because we can use our beads to cover up the tips of the feathers, so it looks a lot neater, it holds it in place. For the strips that you're going to use to put the beads and feathers on,
I would recommend that you use the same color you used for your wrap. And the length is kind of up to you, but you want it long enough that it can wrap around and hang from the piece and still have a little bit of a tail ideally. Now as for thickness, I have a really thick piece of leather here, so I've made it very narrow, and what you want it to be is about 2 to 3 millimeters wide. We want it really slim because we're going to have to fit 2 of these through our pony beads, and you might have a bead with a larger hole, which would enable you to keep this thicker if you want. Now, one more note about the wrap piece is that right on the bottom you want to have a little bit of a sideways diagonal incline cut going here, and that makes it easier to fit through the beads. So I'm gonna put this upright with the hanging piece on top, and I'm gonna find one of my sides, pull the leather piece through. So what I've done is just stuck it behind and around, and it's gonna hang on top. Try not to put this in my glue. And what we're gonna do is pinch the ends together. Really nice and tight, and fit them both through your beads. If you're doing the 3 beads like I am, you might want to alternate their colors. That's what I'm going to do. So we put a black one through, and I might have to cut this a little bit of a longer diagonal slice there. We'll see if that helps. A lot of it is just in the angle. You want it super nice and pointy. Okay, and you want to kind of grab it, pinch it, and pull it right up to the top there. You might want to have a couple at the top and a couple lower down or at the bottom, that's up to you. I'm just going to let mine hang really close to where that joint was. I'm going to put the second bead on, and this time I'm going to use my orange. I'm going to sort of sandwich our colors together here. And black. You do want to watch that your ends are staying somewhat even as you do this. Although you can always trim them at the end if you want them to be shorter or sit closer together. And I'm not sure if that other one went through. Nope. Try that again. Okay, pinch and pull. Now because this is, like I said, really thick, sturdy leather, it is a little harder for me to get the feathers in. Hopefully you're using a wrap that's a touch thinner, and that will make this easier. But I'll show you the steps at any rate. You're going to pull your bottom bead down just a little bit. Sorry. Put a little bit of glue just on top, in that gap in between. And because it's a leather glue, it should dry all clear. And then we're going to take our feather, and you want to sort of pop it under the bead as you're pulling it up, or after you've pulled it up. You can do it either which way. This is really tricky for me right now just because, as I said, I have a thicker leather, so it might take me a couple of tries. But once it's in there and we've got that glue as an extra support, it should be sturdy enough. And you can press it in as high as it will comfortably go. Let's do this carefully. And when everything is dry, you can rub off any excess glue as well. But it should just get pinched in the crack there and kind of vanish on its own. Alright, now you also have the option, if you want to stick a feather at the very bottom to hang, you can do that. Or anywhere else along the way. And there is your beautiful 3D Dreamcatcher. We're all done. Thanks for watching.